Let's talk about that wokeness stuff, though. So we got this from CNN Business. Netflix's world has been turned upside down as stock plunges 35%. I think it's actually at 37%. And then we got this story from CNN Business. The magic is gone for Disney investors. This is from April 19th, just yesterday. And they say that Netflix has plunged more than 40% and Disney is down 15%. Ladies and gentlemen, I would just like to say, get woke, go broke.
Indeed.
Well, that's happening at Netflix. They gave as much, I don't know what the actual deal was. I've seen 12, I've seen $50 million to the Obama's production operation. I had Netflix on the other day. And who was pushed at me? Barack Obama putting out some globalist nonsense about parks and conservation and all of that. And, I guess I'm not allowed to say anything against national parks. But the point is, it was propaganda. They're paying off a left-wing politician who, frankly, brings nothing in terms of creativity other than political activism. And so Netflix is focused on, as you've highlighted, both in the fiction and nonfiction categories, propaganda, and people are turning it off. And there are all sorts of other reasons for it. But if you're going, and the biggest reason in my view, and I say this only half jokingly, is that half the movies aren't American. So you're going, oh, this movie looks good. Turns out it's in a foreign language or in an accent that's hard to follow because of the subtitles, and you don't want to watch it. So it's garbage, it's leftist, and it's not as the quality they're supposed to be giving
What's
us.
with this weird overlap between the left and sexually inappropriate content for children or about children? That's curious because it's funny. When people come out and they're like, hey, we don't want teachers talking to kids about these adult matters, it's the left specifically that freaks out and says we're being attacked by the right. And I'm like, 60% of Democrats agree with these bills in Florida and these other states that kids should not be taught this stuff. But you've got Big Mouth, is that the show's right?
Yeah.
Was just renewed for season 7. You know what that show is? It is voiced by adults, but it is about children going through puberty and engaging in overt
Apparently,
adult activities.
for 7 years, they're going through puberty, I guess. Are they still in puberty?
7 years.
They're just
man.
living really slow.
Weird.
Yo, and people who have not seen the show, I've mentioned this before. Like, I think it's a messed up
It
show.
is disgusting.
Yeah, I mean,
You watched it?
Yeah, I saw like half an episode at my friend's
turned it
house.
off?
Yeah, I walked out of the room. I couldn't. It's just so disgusting. They're 12. They're like 11 and 12, and they're talking about having sex.
No, they're not talking about it.
It's so gross.
They
dude.
legit
You'll
show
see
this
white.
thing.
I'm not gonna.
Yeah. There's like a scene where the kid goes into a stall and they show it,
What
and I'm
the
like,
heck?
what? How is this?
So
Look,
gross.
South Park did similar lewd and crude jokes, and those I'm just like, oh
I'm not
man.
even saying it's gross, like spectacally. It's gross psychologically.
Yeah.
It's. I couldn't let myself even hear it because it was twisting
and
me. It was-
cuties.
So gross.
Yep. No,
So that's why I don't have Netflix. I'm like,
Yeah,
I don't wanna-
absolutely not. No, there's absolutely no way I'll ever have a Netflix subscription. I think part of it is that obviously, there are creepy people all over the world and in all parties, but if you're a creepy person who wants to normalize your disgusting sexual perversions, the Democratic Party has made it perfectly clear that they are a safe bet for you. And
I think
that's
it's
why.
not-
That's
it's
why
radicalism.
people
It's
on the
because
left.
they don't have the moral foundation of purity.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons.
So,
Yeah.
for those not familiar with the moral foundations, man, I always try to get them off the top of my head. There's care, fairness, loyalty, purity, liberty, and
There's one more we can
is
never
it authority?
remember. Maybe.
Or is authority and loyalty the same thing?
I don't
I'm gonna look it up. What's it called again?
The moral foundations, Jonathan Haidt, Haidt. So liberals, when they have this moral foundations test you can take. It asks you questions. Some of these questions are really disturbing. And it asks you, like, to what degree are you okay with this thing?
Right.
And it'll be like, there's one where it says, a daughter takes her father's old, war flag and use it as a rag to mop the floor or whatever. Are you okay with this? And so, these are the kinds of questions.
It was
they ask.
authority is the sixth. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was authority.
So it's liberty, sanctity, which I believe is the purity.
Yeah.
Loyalty, fairness, care, and authority.
Yes.
And you said, and that's 5 though. So liberty was added.
Liberty,
after.
liberty. Yeah.
Yeah.
That was the sixth one.
Yeah. Libertarians only have liberty. This is amazing.
Yeah.
They don't care about anything other than let me do what I want. Be free. Liberals only have care and fairness. So if you're saying something like children must be protected, the sanctity of children and purity, innocence, etc., well, you're probably not going to be a liberal because they don't have that in their minds. They don't understand this as a moral foundation. So when you look at the moral foundations test, there are some questions that are like outright disturbing
They're hard.
about like teachers and kids. I don't know if I would say it's hard. You just say is that okay or not? But some of it's like, you know, an uncle. I don't even want to say this. I can't even say these things.
Yeah.
But it's remarkable what someone would have to say is okay in order to actually get listed as a liberal and thing. Because I get listed as like, you know, libertarian, left leaning or something like that in these tests. But I have a balance of, you know, I have care and fairness is relatively high and then it kind of goes down. I'm like, that kind of makes sense. Like, because I'm kind of in the middle. But you look at how liberals rank and I'm like, what question did they say they were okay with? Because that's kind of weird. Because they don't care about it.
Well, I've said this before. Leftism is essentially a synonym for social decay. It's the word that we use to describe it. And when you think about values like care and fairness, those are the easiest to make subjective. So there's no, I mean, that's not fair, or I care about this person. What does that really mean at bottom?
I disagree. I disagree a little bit. I think you know, a healthy society has a left and a right wing. And the left is kind of experimental in a sense where it is a bit chaotic. And you could describe it in an extreme sense as decay. But the right is supposed to keep things in check. So the left can be like, hey, we want to try this, we want to try that. And the right says, no. Okay, marijuana legalization is tolerable. You know what I mean?
Yeah, so where I disagree is that the foundation of the left in where we get these terms is actually from the French Revolution. And what the left was doing was beheading people, murdering them, trying to like fundamentally restructure the society in extremely disastrous ways. So I agree that there are people in society who the left would argue they identify with or have monopoly over when you're talking about creative people or folks who might be willing to challenge the status quo in some way. But that's not what leftism is.
That's a good point.
Robespierre, man.
You made a good point.
There are guys down at Occupy Wall Street who there's like one dude who said that it was his dream to be Robespierre. And I'm like, you know, he died.
He got his jaw blown off, and they laid him on a table for 2 days to die.
They love it, man.
Well,
they love the idea.
I go back to the library cop on Seinfeld. I may be dating myself, but remember he goes, you know, what's with you, Seinfeld? You want those pictures and kids to open the book up? And is that what gets you going, Seinfeld? And I think that's what gets too many of the left going in terms of discussions of sexual activity with children. And just like that, I don't believe in slippery slopes. We fall off cliffs morally.
Yeah,
and just
amen.
like that, this past 2 weeks, it's now a tenet of a major political party in this country to promote sex talk with young children.
In secret.
In schools.
Mm-hmm. In secret.
And to me, that's not left-right. This is a radical Marxist agenda. They want to tear us away from any competitor to their revolution. Tear us away from religion, from family, from private entities, business, and your biology and sexuality is traditionally understood. And they want to tear that away and put all of that into a mix that they will impose when convenient. They'll tell you what you're going to be, and because you have to rely on them, because you're just a cog in the revolution. And anything that gets in the way of that, any tradition or even biology, they're able to they want to destroy. These are dangerous revolutionary times. Using the word Robespierre, that figure, it's not inappropriate.
Yeah, well, and I'll take it even further and be more clear about it. It's not just that they want to have these conversations about sex with children. That will be bad enough. That will be a problem in and of itself. But they want to normalize perverted sexual behaviors to children
in secret.
In secret.
So I think I actually think schools should teach religion. I think there should be like religious studies. That's not to say they should tell kids you should be this religion. They should just be like, as part of our social studies class, like we're going to learn about various religions. But to the extent that they're allowed to do it, I wonder, because you can't teach the Bible in these schools. So I jokingly tweeted, I half jokingly was like, we should have religion studies. Kids have questions. Teachers should be allowed to give answers. If a kid sees the crucifix or a rosary or something on the desk, well, then the teachers should be allowed to give classroom instruction on Christianity, right? Well, of course, the left would flip out if that was the case. Then I added, teachers should also tell the kids to keep it a secret from their parents. Like that's just unheard of. Mm-hmm.
Well, I don't think the schools are capable of doing that. The left would never allow it to happen. And, you know, my view is that you have to think about Uberizing education, that you find out who's available to give your children the instruction they need. You may not be able to do it through your own homeschooling program, but you have individuals out there who say, you want this taught, you want a third grade education for your child? Pay me for 3 months and we'll get it done under your supervision and guidance, and you'll know what's being taught. Because the public schools, unless they were avowedly conservative, there's an old conservative truism that says any organization not avowedly conservative becomes left over time.
That's the thing,
and that's true, especially about the school.
I don't like using the word left. They become radical. The opposite of conservative is radical.
Yeah.
The whole liberal thing has been overutilized.
Hold on, and you made that point about going after kids. I don't see that as a left thing. I see that as a child predator thing. And I think child predators saw that they could weasel their way in with the left. They tried it by doing the LGBTP thing. The left rejected that initially, and they were like, no. Now you've got the MAP thing, minor attracted persons. People who want to go after kids, no, you're not going to be able to accomplish that with conservatives who have a moral foundation around sanctity. The only option is to get people on the left to agree.
Without God, anything is possible.
I like that you mentioned care and fairness and what it actually means and how they're maybe misinterpreting it. Because if you see a starving child and you think, well, the way I can be care about this kid is to give him food every day, you create a dependence cycle. Another good way to be care about that kid is to teach him how to fish. Now that kid can go and take care of himself. Now, what's the real sort of care? Is it to feed that kid every day and make basically a slave out of him to you, or to teach him how to become independent? Both people will tell you that both of them are types of caring, but getting too emotionally invested in it, I think, is where things can start to get twisted.
Well, so when you would need a combination when dealing with a child, right? So, for example, the responsibility of the parent is to provide for their child and feed them, but also, as you mentioned, ensure that when they become an adult, they are capable of providing for themselves. That said, I think when you look at care and fairness, as I mentioned earlier, you can call anything caring or anything fair. It's what they do all the time. I mean, look at their tautological reasoning around the normalization of perverse behavior. Love is love. What does that actually mean? That sounds very caring. That sounds very fair, but it doesn't actually mean anything. You haven't explained why this is behavior that we should accept.
Yeah, sex. They're like, sex is on the internet, so we need to tell kids about it early. We care about them. If you really care about your kids, don't show them the sex. These things are a radicalization tool. You do not give them to children.
Check this out real quick. This is from June 5th, 2019. Human Events. No Snapchat. Love definitely does have an age.
Oh my gosh.
So they go on to mention that, so this is Ashley St. Clair, who noticed that on Snapchat there was a sticker that said, love has no age. What? And everyone immediately was like, yo, it does. It's over 18. Like, what is this?
There's lots of types of love. Firstly, there's 8 types of love according to the Greeks.
One
of them is eros, and that is not for
Ian.
children.
We get it. You mentioned
there's like
this a
child
lot.
love.
But no, that's actually, it's interesting you do mention the different kinds of love, because our culture, we just use one word for it. And I think part of the flaw here is that we have taken this idea of love in the sense of selfless giving and willing the good of the other person, and we've conflated it with
eros,
with the desire for sexual pleasure.
The reason why I didn't want to derail into this philosophical argument is it was literally about LGBTQ pride. The stickers on Snapchat was about LGBTQ issues, and it included love has no age.
Yikes.
All right.
Disgusting.
So they're not talking about platonic love.
They're talking about agape, the love of the community. It's like you don't know. There's
they're
different
not.
ways to.
They're not. They're talking about people who want to get married to each other.
That's erotic love. Eros
yes.
is what it's called. Yeah.
Right. So we don't need to.
Well, they're using the word love to get you to trick you into thinking that it's about like familial love.
Right.
But they aren't.
It's not love in the metaphysical sense.
Ian,
that's for sure.
You love to talk about love's different forms. That is immaterial here to what we're talking about. When you're talking about LGBTQ, we're talking about issues of people who want to get married and have relationships with each other. One of the words in there is bisexual. When they say for LGBTQ positive branding, love has no age, there's no reason to elaborate beyond that. We know what they're saying.
Agreed.
Well, I mean, you have familial love. Your mother loves you as a child when you're born. But that's
love. Not how they mean it.
Well, it's a different kind of. They're abusing. They're twist. That's the problem. I mean, you said it clearly. That word is too vague. Love is too vague. It's too vague. The Greeks had 8 different types of it. Why don't we?
Well, getting back to the issue of the focus on the sexualization of children. The left, in my view, the organized left, the extremist left, I'm not talking about liberals. I don't think liberals hate children. But the organized revolutionary left hates children. They hate childhood. They have no use for it other than as a prop for more government and more revolution. So what else would you, if you hated children, what would you do? Well, you'd traumatize them with sex talk. You'd kill them in the womb.
Yep.
You do all sorts of things that the left is doing, and to the degree they talk about childhood, it's about collectively raising children. It takes a village to raise a child. This is not a child-friendly philosophy. This radical ideology.
It's fundamentally
I don't-
anti-family.
Thanks for checking out this segment from the Timcast IRL podcast. But if you want to check out the full show live, tune in Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. And if you want more special access content, head over to timcast.com and become a member. Your membership helps sustain this company, keep our journalists employed, makes this show happen, and you will get access to exclusive members-only segments of the Timcast IRL podcast, and there's a massive library to check out. So again, go to timcast.com or tune in Monday through Friday at 8 p.m., and we'll see you all there.